the redemption counts for everything. Wow, I'm not funny, but like, I find myself funny, I think. At first I'm like, I'm a professional, and then I'm like, oh. Hey, it's Rachel over at Moonlight Library. I'm back again for my January wrap-up. Okay, so this month was a little weird, and I will explain that to you later. Kind of affected my reading. Not the amount, I ended up reading 13 books in January, so the amount was great, but it was different from what I'd usually read. So we'll get into that once I hit that point, which should be 3 books in. Okay, so the first book that I read in January was going to be Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians. This book was really good. I ended up giving it 4-star. It is about these men that go out into the woods when they were younger, I guess, and they shoot this elk that ends up coming back and basically haunting them. So it's a horror, it's weird. I read it for the Read Harder Challenge, which I talk about what I planned on reading before, and this was one of them because it was read a genre fiction by an Indigenous First Nations Native American person. And so this was it. It was interesting. It was like, had those like elements of like Native American like folklore and stuff, but also like super creepy, very scary, weird vibe going on inside of it and within it. I thought it was pretty well done. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I feel like I'd like to go back and physically read it because I think that it would be more impactful if I was physically reading it, because I don't think that I spent enough time with it. But I did really like it, and I do want to reread it as an actual book. Maybe I'll buy it and reread it. It's a great idea. The next book I read was Hamnet, and that is by Maggie O'Farrell. This is the story of, I had such a hard time explaining it for a while. It is about Hamnet being William Shakespeare's son. He has an older daughter, and then Hamnet's one of the twins. And there's like records of William Shakespeare having this son, but this book doesn't focus on William Shakespeare at all. It doesn't even mention him by name. You just know it's William Shakespeare, and you're mainly following his wife and the children, and it's a novel about the plague, so you kind of know something's going to happen, something's going to go wrong, and how is this going to tie into Hamlet, which was spectacular. It was so interesting. It had this way of using nature and using all sorts of stuff. It had this like lore to it. It had magic, but like magical realism elements that kind of like tied in, and everything was so lyrically written and beautifully written. Right now I'm reading her memoir, I Am, and it is just as beautiful, just as wonderful, and I'm speeding through it right now. I almost finished it for this wrap up, but I don't think I'm going to. This is like January 31st at 11 p.m., so I don't think so. That would be insane. You'll hear about it next time. But if you want a magical read that has like historical elements, and also it's sad too, and just give this one a read. Okay, so this is where we get to what happened this month. So those were the 2 books I read before the happening. After this, I started this class called Young Adult Books and Resources. I talked about it in my reading vlog most recently. And in this class, I have to read 10 young adult books by February 7th. I'm right now on my 9th one. And I also, like, by the end of the semester, have to read 30 young adult books. So I'm going to be reading a lot of young adult for the next couple of months. I don't typically read so much young adult. I might read, like, 1 or 2 in a month, but not... It's almost never my vast majority. it's more likely that I don't read a young adult than read 10 young adults. I love young adult literature. Obviously, I took this class. I enjoy reading YA, but at the same time, it's not something I typically will pick up. It won't be the primary thing. Unless it's a graphic novel. It's a little different because I love YA graphic novels. So the first one on that list and the third book I read was Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Boys. I've been hearing about this so much, and we have to read prompts for, like, in the class of 15 of the books have to follow prompts. So for this one, I did it for our fantasy prompt, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think that I want to go back and reread it. I think I read it a little too fast for my own good. Sometimes 3 times audiobook speed is, like, not the best thing, because as soon as I entered this class, I was, like, freaking out, like, oh my god, I have to read all these books. And I was like, 3 times audio speed, let's go. Bad idea. Poor decision. So this book follows Blue, and she just kind of she doesn't live a normal life. I was going to say she lives a normal life. Her family has, like, magical abilities and stuff, kind of. And I'm probably going to explain this horribly because obviously I listened to it on 3 times speed. Her family has magical abilities, and she's with her mother in a graveyard one night, and they're, like, looking at the spirits of people that are going to die within the year or something. And she sees this, like, she doesn't usually see any of them. She just writes the names down for her mom. And she actually sees someone this time, and her mom says, that means you're either going to kill him or he's your true love. And then she meets him in real life, and boop-de-doo, you know, he has, like, all these, like, prep school friends, and they're on a mission to, like, figure some stuff out, and she's like, here I am, I'm your gal, I'm gonna tag along. I thought it was fun. I would continue the series. I want to reread it, though. This is another one. This is where I learned my lesson about audiobooks, was after this one. I was like, Rachel, you need to slow down, you need to hold your horses, and if you're going to listen to an audiobook that fast, you should also be reading it at the same time. Great way to read sometimes when you're trying to get a lot done. So, the next book I read for my science fiction prompt, which I'll probably change because I'm reading a different book right now, but I'm still going to use it as one of my random books. I Hope You Get This Message by Farah Rishi, and I enjoyed this book enough. It was about these 3 teenagers, and it is like a week before the world's going to end. These aliens are going to decide the fate of our Earth to see if humanity's worth it, and you're getting these messages from the aliens that you're hearing. They don't really know what the decision is on Earth, but one of the people is, like, sending messages out there for other people to hear, kind of thing. Anyways, one of the other people is trying to find her long-lost father. Another person is trying to find his long-lost sister, and they all end up, you know what I mean, things diverge, and it all takes place in, like, Nevada, and it was okay. I just think that it was lacking. I didn't really care that much. It was very apocalyptic in a way, but also kind of like, fell flat for me. And that's really all I have to say about that. So we're going out of order now. Sorry. These are my decisions. I always like to leave the graphic novels for last because, I don't know, I think that they should all just be together. Next up is Radio Silence, and let me pull it over here. I actually own this one. Wow. I love this. So this is about, I already forgot her name, Frances, and Frances is kind of like this A+ honor girl, you know. She's like the head girl at her school, and she's towards the end of high school in England, and she already like, she's completely different outside of school, though. She doesn't know how to show, or, like, she doesn't show who she really is. She's, like, this oddball, you know? She's a weirdo. But at school, everyone's like, she's the prude. But she's not. She's like, I'm something different from that, but I don't feel like I can show that at school. And she ends up meeting Aled, or she already kind of knows him, but she ends up meeting him and finding out that they kind of are the same. And there's this whole podcast on YouTube called Radio Silence, and it takes place in Universe City, and she's obsessed with it, and things happen from there. I don't know what's a spoiler and what's not a spoiler, but the way it was written, it was so beautiful. I love the fact that at one point in this book, you're thinking to yourself, Aled and Francis are going to end up together. It's so cute. And then you're like, it stops you and it basically says, like, hey, this isn't a love story. We don't fall in love at the end. Like, that doesn't happen. And I was kind of, like, heartbroken for a second. But then I looked back and I said, why do I need that to happen? Why do I feel like that's what's going to make this book feel fulfilling to me? And trust me, the fact that that didn't happen does not upset me. Because it's not really a reveal either, but it's... I think it puts more emphasis on their friendship. And the fact that, like, that shouldn't matter, and you shouldn't be... Like, you don't have to look at a guy and a girl like that in every story. Because they can be more obvious. Like, I have guy friends, you know? It's not like everyone's like, oh, they're gonna end up together. But obviously, I have a boyfriend. But... yeah. So I thought it was just a magical book, and it made me cry at points. It made me think. I wish I would have read this in high school. I think I would have gotten a lot out of reading it and feeling like I was a weird person too, that people didn't really know me, or not a lot of people, because I didn't really open up to people in high school. I feel like I was kind of myself at home, and then kind of like the quiet person at school with people I didn't know, especially. I mean, I'm kind of like that still. Yeah. I feel like people know I'm a little weird, but they, like, don't know me. Yeah. Next up, I read The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. I read this one because one of the prompts was read a realistic YA book set before 1980. So this fit it. It was kind of seen as one of the first young adult books that was really like a hard hitter and stuff like that. It's about these boys at a prep school. They're in their teens, I guess, and they're trying to sell these chocolates, and it's told from the point of view of kind of like this like head honcho boy who's in charge of like the secret society, and he's like the bad boy. He's gonna get it done, but he's also a bully, and it's very Lord of the Flies. And there's this other guy who says, I'm not going to sell these chocolates. You're not going to make me sell these chocolates. And you end up with butting heads. And it's interesting to look at the dynamics between them. And, like, the whole time I was thinking, this is like a prep school version of Lord of the Flies. And they sell chocolate. What else do I have to say about this book? Not much. Because I gave it a 2. It was just... there. It was something I had to read. I could have chosen Forever by Judy Blume, and I don't know why I didn't. I've never read that book. I think it'd be interesting to read a Judy Blume. I've never done that. But whatever. I read The Chocolate War. Next up is Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I've never read Wilder Girls. We're going to start out there. Burn Our Bodies Down is about this girl who kind of has this like weird, strained relationship with her mother. Her mother won't tell her anything about where they came from. And so she is like, whatever, Mom. And she sets out. She's like, I'm going to find out where we're from. And she goes on a little quest. It's very short quest because she ends up there. She figures it out pretty fast. And so it's in Nebraska. And she ends up at this farm. It's her grandmother, and her grandmother basically welcomes her in, but like the farm is all weird, and like inside of the, like, they grow corn, and inside the husks, the corn is like double husked or something, and is all wrapped around each other, and it's like pink and it oozes. Super gross. So that's maybe all I'll say about that. But like, there are a lot of things that point to a certain thing that you might have a feeling is the thing happening, and it's like, is it supposed to be a surprise? Because you keep bringing it up. Like, you brought it up a lot in a way that I was like, I know what the conclusion of this is. I know what's gonna happen. Why do you keep bringing it up? Is it supposed to be a surprise? But like, bringing it up in a way where like, oh, here's a little hint. Here's the hint again. 5 pages later, here's a hint. And I'm like, I don't understand. Is it a twist? Or are you just laying it out for me? Because I guessed it right away, but it's not straightforward telling you. It's just, yeah. So I gave it a 3. I mean, it was like, it was okay. I liked it enough. It was creepy. It was kind of body horror and like, ooh, gross. I had some like moments, but that's about it on it. Be Not Far From Me by Mindy McGinnis is the next one. And wow. This has to be one of my favorite books I read this month, personally, right next to Hamnet and Radio Silence, but Be Not Far From Me. I cried a lot. So it's about this girl, and she goes on this like end of junior year camping trip, and she is an adventure sort, like naturist, and so she knows like what types of plants you can eat, like how to like track things, which way is north and stuff, you know, how to like see where you're facing, what to do to prepare shelter. But this is just normal camping with her friends, and they're getting drunk, having a time, and she sees something that she didn't want to see, and she goes bolting out into the woods. And out there, after she's run for a while without shoes on, something happens where a boulder goes right over her foot. She can't find her way back to camp, and when she's yelling people's names finally after way too long, no one responds. It seems like people just assume like she left after she saw the thing she saw. And it turns into a how do I get home story. And it was so impactful. It took you, like, it felt like I was inside of the story. I read it in a day, and I felt like I was trying to survive in the woods. Like, I would look up from the book and be like, oh, I'm not in the woods right now trying to survive. Oh, there's water right next to me. How did I get that? Did I have to purify it? I was having moments. And I was like, it takes you back to her childhood within it. It takes you over here. You know, it's traveling you through the story and through her life and how she feels about where she is in her life and while she is going through the woods. It was beautiful. I think that, wow, that's going to be a top 10 of the year. I can already feel it. Maybe I'm too soon, but I'm feeling like that with this one because I was just like, So, on we go to our graphic novels. I'm going to run through these. I have 5 of them. Yep. I read a lot of graphic novels. So, Stargazing by Jen Wang. This one was super cute. It's middle grade, and it's about this girl who is just a normal girl in middle school, and this other girl, like, their family has a guest house, and there's this family who has kind of fallen on hard times. It's just a mother and a daughter, and they have nowhere to go, and the main family of the girl let them live in the guest house. And so she'd always heard that this like new little girl was bad news and stuff, but really she's just this sweet girl that wants to like dance K-pop, and she's genuine. She's real. She is, like, just herself. And the other little girl is, like, kind of closed in because she's told, like, don't do this, don't do that. So she doesn't feel like she can let herself be herself around people. Jealousy, there's hardship, there's things that happens. And it was cute. I loved it. Wonderful. So, yes. Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. This one is a memoir graphic novel. So, Robin was from Korea, and she was the daughter of a single mother. The father had left, like, many years before, and her mother decides that they're going to go to America on a little trip to Alabama. Well, it turns out that she is marrying a man, a Korean man, in Alabama, and they end up staying there. And she's like, wait a second, what? Like, I am 14, and I didn't even get to say bye to my friends. It's like the 90s or something, so I can't just, like, you know, hit them up on Instagram or Facebook. So she's like, I can't contact my friends, I can't do anything, and so she's just kind of, like, thrown into America and, like, doesn't even know English. And you get to see her journey of how she deals with things changing rapidly in her life to the point where, like, I couldn't even imagine being 14 years old and thrown into a country where I don't speak the language and then expected just, like, pick it up and figure it out, you know? They didn't even have Esol there. It was just like, there you go. Figure it out. Your English teacher happens to be nice, but some other teachers kind of suck, and the kids kind of suck too because they aren't really, like, exposed to other cultures, and it's the 90s, so it was great. I gave it 5 stars. Kiss Number 8 by Colleen A.F. Venable. This book I had a really weird time with. So it's about this girl who is, like, talking about all of the kisses she had, but, like, kiss number 8 is, like, the one that changed everything. So it kind of is a story of how she got to kiss number 8. It, like, it gives you 1 through 4, and then you get to see, like, I think 5, 6, and 7, and then 8. And she's just this, like, teenage girl that's kind of confused in her life and dealing with, like, she goes to a Christian school and figuring out, like, sexuality and stuff like that. And there's some weird plot lines that happen where you're like, wait a second, there's some woman who is, like, sending her letters that are, like, cryptic, and then you think one thing's going on, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, a different thing's going on, she's investigating something, and you're like, wait a second, but doesn't this have to do with the kissing? But, like, the name of in the whole premise, the beginning, it's all about, like, how'd she get to kiss number 8? And then you're like, when did this become this weird investigative book? And then it kind of comes together in the middle, but, like, there's this part where you're like, wow, this is real transphobic and homophobic, and then you're like, wait a second, that the author's doing this intentionally, so maybe I should keep watching or reading. And so I was like, we're just gonna let this keep happening, and then, okay, it's kind of made up for, and then it's made up for, and then it's like, kind of like some stuff is brushed over, like, it didn't actually matter. I gave it a 4. I mean, okay, so the ending was, like, very, like, whoa! I was like, whoa! And then I was like, that was a 5-star, even though I was gonna give it a 1. But I feel like it felt like a 5-star because I was going to give it a 1-star halfway through, and then it, like, redeemed itself. And then in my brain, it was like, the redemption counts for everything. So then I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I feel like it should be more like a 3. And that's the end of my rant on the weirdness of Kiss Number 8 and rating systems. Bloom by Kevin Panetta. Wow. Okay, so Bloom is another book that I had weird issues with as well. Okay, Bloom is about this guy who is... I don't remember. See, I don't even remember. So this guy, he's like 18 or 19. He's working at his parents' bakery. It's a Greek bakery. And he wants to leave to, like, he's in a band and they're going to move to, like, the city. I don't know if they named the city, but they say the city. Maybe it's Baltimore. Let's just say. They have a music scene there. And so he wants to move to Baltimore because that's what I'm choosing. Maybe that's correct. And he needs to find a replacement baker. Well, the other one, Mr. Hunk, we'll call him Mr. Hunk. Mr. Hunk comes in and he's like, hey there, like his grandma just died and he's cleaning out her house, decides to take a year off baking school and happens to see the ad for this bakery. Says, hey, I want to come in. And they say, okay, yeah, sure. He starts working there. And then a friendship blossoms. It blooms. Yeah. So then it becomes, you know what I mean? It's like, what? And then the main guy, baker guy, the son in the bakery, his friends suck. And there's like these horrible depictions of like some of the women in this story. There's this one woman who she's dating this guy. They're both in the band. She's dating this guy that really sucks, and he is like talking down to people. He's shit talking everyone. He's trash, trash, trash. And she's like totally okay with it, and never, like, no one ever questions the fact that she still wants to be with this guy who's trash, and no one questions their friendship with this guy. And like this woman becomes like this 2D depiction of a person where it's like a place filler. Like, oh, we need some sort of controversy. The two of the band members are probably going to start dating. Well, let's use the one that's a dick and then make this girl who like doesn't seem to notice that he's like the worst person ever, and then like let's not talk about it. Yeah. So I don't know how I felt about that. The other woman is just seen as like this rambunctious, like, you know, and she doesn't really have personality either, so that's kind of sad and depressing that the only people with personality in this book are men. Thanks. I gave that one what did I give that? A 2. I gave it a 2 because I was like, it fell flat. Also, the romance was like not there, and that's why I got nitpicky about everything else. Those are my feels. Now, Witchlight by Jessi Zabarsky. So this one is about this girl who works with her family in a market in this fantasy realm, and this witch is like gets into this little battle at the market because she's like she's duping people, and the girl, I'm not going to use anyone's name because I forget everyone's names. So the girl, she goes, she gets kidnapped by the witch, and the witch is like, yo, like, can you teach me to sword fight? And mind you, like, both of them are like cute and young, and then sword fighting becomes, you know, not so much a sword but more like a shield. What? So it's like an LGBTQ plus fantasy graphic novel. So that one was that one. Witchlight was okay. It just like also fell flat. I didn't really care about this romance here either. And at this point, I feel like I realized I was just reading graphic novels because they were around. And I was like, let's cut a break from all the graphic novels and let's just read some books, because you're having a weird time. You are obviously being very weird and nitpicky about these graphic novels. I mean, the last good one I read was Almost American Girl. So that was like a 3 streak of weirdness, and they were okay. They just like were lacking certain details that I wanted in a graphic novel. There you go. So that's the end of my wrap up for January. Those are my feelings. I feel like by the end of all of my videos, I go a little bit weird. And it's like, at first I'm like, I'm a professional. And then I'm like, oh. But it's like, what happened? What happened to me? Where did I go during this? Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these, or if, based on what you heard I read, you have some suggestions for me to read, or based on me having to read a ton of young adult books, you'd be like, hey, have you read this one? Maybe you should. Because I want recommendations. I need them. Please, maybe I'll do a video that's like me recommending to you and you recommend to me. Great idea. Bye.